What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. Fireside Giants, powered by BetUS. Today, we want to talk about the Giants' New York Jets preseason game coming up this Saturday. We know that it was a hard-fought practice, joint practice between the two teams yesterday afternoon. Today, slow day. Most of the starters on both sides didn't even participate in this practice. Pretty much just taking the day off, cruising by, likely not playing in this upcoming preseason game either. I think many of you know, if you've been keeping up with the channel, I'm pretty critical of that decision. I think the Giants starters should be playing. I'm afraid of them getting off to a slow start in the regular season like they did last year. I think that they should be trying to hit the ground running in the first 3 weeks of the season, but Brian Daboll decided to kind of take a more relaxed approach here and not risk anyone's health, making sure that the Giants starters aren't getting injured in another physical practice today against the Jets and likely not playing in Saturday's game, though that's unconfirmed. That seems to be the way that things are headed. So with those starters not playing, there are still a few key position battles left to be figured out in this preseason game. Now, we're talking on the defensive side of the ball. You guys know we have our question marks in that secondary, and we've discussed them at length. We know on the defensive line even, maybe on the offensive line. We kind of just want to talk about some of those key position battles and key players to watch in this upcoming Saturday preseason finale versus the New York Jets. So we're going to unpack that and give you our takeaways, but before we do so, make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts down below in the comments section. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure you leave us a 5-star review, and go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. But without further ado, Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? And what's the top position battle in this upcoming preseason game that you are keeping a close eye on?
Right now, I mean, aside from me doing pretty well today, I think the top position battle has to be at CB2. It's not even really a conversation. It is CB2. And right now, one of those guys competing is not playing. And that's a really big problem for this Giants team. You know, you look at, talk about the in-division trade that happened today. Jahan Dotson being traded from the Washington Commanders to the Eagles. Dotson's been pretty bad for the Commanders, but you know the Eagles are going to make him a stud. Like, you just know it. You sit here and you wonder, like, why did they make an in-division trade? Well, to me, they're getting that third-round pick. Maybe throw it at the San Francisco 49ers to try and get Brandon Ayuk. If you're a fantasy football fan, if the Commanders get Ayuk, yeah, I'm putting down some money that Jaden Daniels is going to have some good year if they get Ayuk with Terry McLaurin over there. So that'd be pretty cool for them. But, you know, this division is stacked with receiver talent. We saw Nick McLeod get cooked yesterday against Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson cooked our whole secondary over and over and over. And we saw CJ Stroud pick them apart over and over and over. What do you think is going to happen when we have to face, even Sam Darnold and Justin Jefferson are going to tear these guys apart. You know what I mean? Like, as long as you have Justin Jefferson, they're going to beat us in a lot of ways. You look at this division, Terry McLaurin, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, C.D. Lamb. Now you got Dotson, who's not a bad player, just a struggling one right now. There's a lot of really good talent in this division, and our cornerbacks are not good enough to hold up. I don't think that Cordell Flott is a CP2 right now. He hasn't played enough. You know, he's injured. Yeah, you can't get better. You can't win the job if you're not on the field. Nick McLeod, solid player. He's a depth piece to me. He's a first-string backup. He's not supposed to be a starter. We never wanted him to be. He never was. We only had him competing because we had nobody else. I think this Giants team has to go get somebody. I keep throwing the name like Adoree Jackson. I keep throwing the name like Akello Witherspoon. Like, there's some good, like, serviceable free agents. Waiver wire is a good place to go to find some talent, but you really expecting a guy to walk on this team from a guy that was just cut elsewhere to be our CB2? That's a losing strategy. Is it going to be via trade? You're going to get a Greg Newsome, go get a J.C. Horn? Sure, like, maybe that could work, but you're getting guys that other teams don't want, and you're getting guys that have not been performing because they haven't been healthy or they've been, just inconsistent. So anyway you look at it, this Giants secondary is staring in the face of a really big problem. If one of those guys, if Banks gets hurt, it's deep trouble for us. I know the Ringer had their defense ranked 16th today in their power rankings. And look, that's a fine ranking. It's slightly below average, but it's entirely predicated on this pass rush being a top 5 unit, right? Like, these guys have to step up to the plate and offer their best versions. And they could do that. They may do that. They should do that because they're that talented. But that does not eliminate the problems in the secondary. These guys cannot play in man coverage. They will get cooked. In zone coverage, they're gonna find the gaps opposing teams because these guys are inexperienced, right? They don't know what to see. They don't know what's coming. They don't have that level of NFL experience to determine what's happening pre-snap a lot of times. So, Anthony, talking about this CB2 job, That is by far the biggest concern. It is not just a concern, it is a freaking red hot problem. It's on the grill, man. It's seared. Like, it is a problem. The question is, how do the Giants address it? There are ways, but a lot of those ways don't necessarily mean they're going to get much better, just more experienced.
No, you do make a good point. Just because the Giants, if they eventually do pick somebody up off of the waiver wire, that doesn't mean that they are upgrading. That's honestly a lot of the times just a depth addition and more of a lateral move, not a vertical move. Like, whoever you pick up off the waiver wire, they were cut for a reason, most likely. They weren't good enough to make their initial roster, so they end up on your team and likely just to fill out a depth spot. So you don't really want someone that you pick up off the waiver wire to instantly become your starter. Now, obviously, the Giants have had some waiver wire players develop into starters, Jason Pinnock being a great example. They've had other players who've had flashes, Isaiah Hodgins, but don't become starters. And for the majority of players on the waiver wire, they go to a new team and they develop into a backup role. So I don't want to bank on this waiver wire being the way that the Giants find their CB2. I'm hoping that somebody steals this job in this final preseason game. And Alex, I think one player that we have not really discussed enough is Trey Hawkins. Now, we've talked a lot about Cordell Flott and Nick McLeod. Maybe Nick McLeod has a great performance in this final preseason game. He's the CB2 starting in week 1. Totally possible. But Trey Hawkins has played pretty well in both of those first preseason games. Like, he's looked like a decent player this summer. If he goes into this third preseason game, he's a shutdown corner and looks really good. Well, then he might just go into the regular season as the starter opposite Banks week 1, same way that we had him last year. Now, last year, Trey Hawkins wins the starting job in the summer. It starts in week 1. I think he was benched by week 3 or 4. Had 158.3 perfect passer rating against him. A real struggle. But then again, 6th round rookie out of Old Dominion. What kind of expectations did we really have for Trey Hawkins last year? Maybe he just needed more time to develop, more time to grow, another summer of practices under his belt. Maybe he could be a better player this year. I don't want to totally discount him or rule him out of this battle. So while we keep talking about McLeod and Flott, first of all, Cordell Flott unable to get healthy and stay healthy this summer. Major concern. I don't want to bank on him going into the regular season. And honestly, Alex, at the beginning of the offseason, that was one of the top concerns that I expressed. I wasn't sure if Cordell Flott would stay healthy. So I'm not high on Cordell Flott. I know a lot of fans are. I'm not one of them. I like McLeod a lot as a patchwork CB2, not as a long-term solution, but as a band-aid for now. And I do think that there is something to be harnessed there with Trey Hawkins. I hope he gets a lot of playing time this Saturday. Hope he rises to the occasion. Maybe he can win the starting job. Alex, what are your thoughts on that? Trey Hawkins once again throwing his name in the mix here as a potential sleeper to steal a starting quarterback job like he did last year. Do you think it's possible? And what do you think the result would be if he does end up the starter?
I mean, listen, Trey Hawkins, he's got all the tangible traits to be a really good player, right? Like, he's got the size, he's got the speed, he's got the strength and physicality. He just needs the experience, right? It's you kind of look at this Giants team and you say to yourself, there's a lot of good talent on paper, but they just don't have enough reps to be good. Deonte Banks, 1 season under his belt. You were hoping he could be the lockdown corner against elite receivers. Undrafted free agent from a couple years ago, Nick McLeod, barely has any real experience as a starter in the NFL, if any. Cordell Flott has never been a starter in the NFL. He had a couple games in the slot, but now he's on the boundary where he's never started. So, like, the Giants are trying to, and we talked about this in the past, Anthony, you'll remember this now, fitting square pegs into round holes. That is what the Giants are trying to do right now. Right? That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to force a UDFA into a starting job. They're trying to force a guy that was been playing in the slot into a boundary spot. And they're trying to force a guy that's inexperienced in Trey Hawkins into potentially being a starter. These are not solutions for a team that needs to win right now. These are not solutions for, and to be quite frank, for a general manager in Joe Schoen and a head coach in Brian Daboll that seem to be like they are one step away from being on the hot seat. One bad season away from having their jobs questioned. They are not doing enough. They're trying to force things, and, I just don't think that's the right strategy. Listen, the secondary is a concern. We all know this. They addressed the safety position with Tyler Nubin. They're hoping Dane Belton can be a serviceable backup, if not start some games if need be. Jason Pinnock is a starter. Andrew Phillips is a rookie. And look, that's at least a good fit because he is slated to be a nickel corner. Like, that was his transition, and that's where he will play. But other guys, we're trying to force guys that don't necessarily fit this secondary into prominent roles. And I don't necessarily think that's a good strategy. In fact, I don't think it's a good strategy. I think that the Giants need, next week, after this game, when cuts happen, And they will be, and I think like we're talking about this prematurely, but like they will make moves there. They know this. Like if we're talking about it, everyone's talking about it. They know it. So it's just a matter of them being patient and finding the right opportunity to jump and find a good player. But they should have been a little bit more aggressive in free agency months ago, trying to find a serviceable corner. There was a really, we talked about how deep this cornerback class was. They missed out on every single person. That's concerning.
The only counterpoint that I'll make to that is if you study the way that the Giants moved this offseason, they pretty much, and I thought we got a lot more context for this during Hard Knocks, where there was the scene when Joe Shane speaks to Shane Bowen and says, hey, we can make this move for Brian Burns, but we're not going to be able to get you a CB2 if we do so. So are you comfortable with going, well, yeah, either way, but they pretty much said if we sign Brian Burns, you're not going to be able to get your CB2. Like, that's not going to be affordable for us. And he said, I'm cool with that. He said, I'm cool with Burns. And honestly, makes sense because the way that a great pass rush transforms your defense, your cornerbacks do not have to guard their wide receiver assignments for as long. They don't have to cover for as long. So, and this kind of, again, ties into the conversation that I had with Justin Tuck yesterday on the channel. He pretty much said, when you've got those pass rushers up front, you don't need to worry about your cornerbacks on an island because the quarterback is getting the ball out of his hand so quickly because he's under so much pressure. So rather than investing in that great group of cornerbacks that was available in free agency, Alex, the Giants just took the opposite approach. They said, I'd rather invest that money into a pass rush because honestly, you could argue one great pass rusher in Brian Burns does more for the secondary than a slightly above average cornerback in the secondary. I think you could make that argument. So, it's a nuanced conversation. We'll know whether or not the Giants made the right decision at the end of the season. We can't possibly know that now. But I do think we have to give them somewhat of a benefit of a doubt here. Give Shane Bowen the benefit of the doubt because he said that he would rather have the great pass rusher over a cornerback option, would rather just get after the quarterback, force the ball out of his hands quickly, and that will and should hopefully allow the cornerbacks to look a lot better than maybe they truly are.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the pass rush is an essential piece of the puzzle. Like, it is going to help the secondary significantly, but I will say this. The fact that the secondary is this weak and the fact that we're probably not going to see substantial improvements does indicate that we still are very much in a rebuilding process. Now, the concern to me, Anthony, is that a lot of these guys we've invested in to develop have not developed properly, right? Cordell Flott is not where we need him to be. He is very far from where we need him to be. They've just invested a third-round pick to solve a nickel corner spot. And I like Andrew Phillips, but he's young and inexperienced. There are going to be a lot of problems for him this year. He did not play in this most recent preseason game. So, there are a lot of concerns. Tyler Nubin, another rookie here. Like, this is a very, very young secondary. It is safe to say that assuming they will be bad is probably the right thought process. They're not going to be very good. Inexperienced. They don't have that primary leader in the secondary. They don't have that guy that just locks it down. You don't have like a DJ Reed. You don't have, you have Bobby Okereke at linebacker, but he's really, kind of monitoring things up close and helping to stop the run and do a lot of stuff closer to the line of scrimmage. He is a very solid covers linebacker, but that's not the same as being on the boundary on an island. I do think that this Giants team is very much rebuilding in a lot of ways. There's a reason they're one of the youngest teams in football. It is a very glaring kind of thing. Like, we expect them to win, but I think it's also important to acknowledge this team is still building. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this team is building. This offensive line is still building. We still don't know what's happening at quarterback. This running back room is extremely young. These receivers are extremely young. Half of them, 90% of them are on rookie contracts. Our secondary is completely inexperienced. Maybe a couple years combined of actual experience. It's like very, very problematic in my opinion. So, just the way this team is constructed, it doesn't look like a team that is going to be like really competitive. But I will say this. It's essential for them to grow to get this experience. They need to get this. They have to be thrown into the fire. They have to be tested like this. It's the only way for them to grow. So I do think it's the right decision, but CB2 being a problem in a division that has this many great receivers is very, very problematic, especially coming up week 1 against the Minnesota Vikings. Take a little quick break here from our sponsor, BetUS. Some really good stuff on the lines from for the Week 1 Vikings showdown. Let's take a look at some of these odds. So right off the bat here, guys, Minnesota versus the Giants Week 1 on Sunday, September 8th, opening day. I'm so excited, dude. I really am. This is going to be such an exciting game. JJ McCarthy's not playing. Would have been kind of fun to watch Neighbors and JJ and see that back and forth. But on BetUS, you have Minnesota and the Giants minus 110 either way, the point spread game here. I honestly, I'm not totally sure who wins this game, but I think the Giants have a decent shot to win this one. Sam Darnold is not a good quarterback, guys. I think that if Brian Dable kind of dials it up, gets aggressive, their secondary is just as weak as ours. They just made a couple of moves to try and strengthen it, but Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, if they kind of step up here, I do think that they're going to put pressure on Sam Darnold. We're going to get some turnovers, Anthony. What are your thoughts here? I know I kind of like the Giants in this game, over 41.5 points, bad secondaries. I could see them going over this.
Yeah, over 41.5 points makes sense to me just because we're talking about, I know it's Sam Darnold on their center and it's Daniel Jones on their center, and, there's going to be question marks about how many points those two can put up for their offenses, but we are talking about a Malik Neighbors offense. We are talking about a Justin Jefferson offense. So we are talking about some playmakers and two really good offensive-minded head coaches in Brian Dable and Kevin O'Connell. So I do think these teams are going to come out of the gates trying to fire strong and get off to a hot start, dial up some deep shots. I think some points will be scored. That over 41.5 is a tight line. You're talking about probably 3 touchdowns apiece for each team, but that does feel doable. That feels more than doable based on what we've seen so far this summer from both of these squads and the way that their offenses have been rolling.
Yeah, I'm throwing 25 on this. I think that 25 to win almost $23 over 41.5. I like this one. And guys, remember, you get 125% bonus here. You get 125% bonus up to $2,000. So take advantage of that. It's a tremendous opportunity, and you can make a lot of money. We'll be doing this all season long and doing some bets and following along. Hopefully, we'll be able to capitalize. But week 1 against the Vikings, I like this one. I think this is a good bet, over 41.5. I'm pretty excited to see what the Giants can do on week 1. Let me make sure I get this bet in. Bang. All right. We're going to see if we can get a little dub on week 1. What do you say? And then we'll get some props, game props as well, player props, stuff like that. I think we're going to be heavy Neighbors fans this year. I mean, 33.3% of target share in week 2 against Houston. I think Daniel Jones is going to be one of his favorite targets. I'm hyped to see what they can do together. So now back to the position battles. We talked a lot about CB2. How about safety? How about Dane Belton and Tyler Nubin? I think Nubin's won this job, to be quite honest with you. I mean, right now, at least in my perspective, looking at what Nubin has done to get back into the fold here following the calf injury, I think he's reclaimed this starting job. I think it was always his to begin with. Dane Belton, he struggled. He got picked on a bit in joint practice yesterday. I saw him get picked on. He had that penalty in the red zone against Houston. Obviously, that was not good. Nubin's been aggressive, getting up and helping in run support too. What do you think right now? I think Nubin was always the plan for him to be that ball hawk, be that guy at free safety, and then Dane Belton can be kind of that utility piece at free and strong safety.
Yeah, and that's been the role for Dane Belton all throughout his career so far. These first 2 seasons that he's played, we've seen him line up a lot in that cash kind of role, in that big nickel kind of third safety position. We've seen him do a lot of that stuff, get in the box a lot, and we've seen him play deep and on special teams as well. So he's really just been this versatile piece for the Giants coaching staff to kind of plug and play all around the secondary, and that's likely to continue. I am a little bit surprised that Tyler Nubin was given the starting job back so quickly. It feels like it was only recently he returned to practice. He did look good in both of those 2 preseason games that he played in, especially the first one. Obviously knocked an offensive lineman on his butt and then made a tackle for loss. That was a standout moment, but I do think that Dane Belton had equal highs and standout moments throughout the summer of training camp. So while I'll say I agree with you, I think that this is Tyler Nubin's job right now. I think he's going to be the starter. I wouldn't discount Dane Belton. I think if he goes into this preseason game and turns in a really good performance, we could see him be a pseudo-starter. And what I mean by that is, yes, Tyler Nubin probably takes the first snap of the game for the defense, but I do think that you could see a rotation between these 2 guys. The secondary is unlike most of other position groups because it's not like on the offensive line, for example, Alex, we don't like when the Giants rotate their guards. Like they have one guy on for one drive and another guy on for another drive. We always criticize that and say that it's stupid. But for the secondary, it's a little bit different because that's very cardio intensive. Those guys in the secondary are running from one hash to the sideline, from the sideline to the other hash, right? Like they're moving around a lot. They're getting hit. They're running deep. When, let's say, a wide receiver just runs a go route, they got to respect that. All of a sudden, they just ran 40 yards. Sometimes it's good to have that depth in the secondary, have a couple reliable pieces. Nubin just did a 40-yard sprint, maybe a little bit tired. All right, sub him out. Now you can feel comfortable putting Dane Belton on the field since he's played well this summer also. So that's why I say maybe he could be a pseudo-starter, not necessarily be the starter in the secondary, but maybe he ends up playing 30 to 40% of the snaps this season anyway, in addition to the 60 to 70% that you see from Tyler Newman. So I think both of those guys will get decent run during the regular season. Belton has absolutely earned a larger role, whether he's earned a starting role or not, up to debate and up to Shane Bowen of the defensive coordinator. But we'll see ultimately how much he ends up playing. I do think that he's earned a larger role in this defense, though.
Yeah, I do think so as well. I think this safety group is rather deep for the most part. I do like Newbin. I do think obviously the drop off from Xavier McKinney is quite significant, but that was always going to be the case. Now, I do want to discuss another one here on the defensive line with Elijah Chapman, Raheem Nunez-Roche, Jordan Riley. Some good players there. I think Chapman, so far, I've heard that they're going to be utilizing him mostly on passing downs as a pass rusher from the interior, given his strength and speed. I think that Raheem Nunez-Roche and Dexter Lawrence will be the primary early down defensive tackles to be, stop the run, manage play action, whatever it might be. And then Chapman will come in as that kind of rotational piece for Nunez-Roche. How do you project this? What do you kind of foresee for this defensive line? I mean, can't really go wrong there. Nunez-Roche is a fine DT too. Chapman being a UDFA, needs some experience under his belt, but every time he gets on the field, he's drawing holds, making a positive impact. That's really all you can hope for.
No doubt, and you can hope for plenty with an undrafted free agent. Number one thing you hope for is to see them work their ass off and hustle, and we've seen that and then some from Elijah Chapman, right? Like, he has put in the work and he's made a lot of solid plays, whether you're talking as an undersized defensive tackle getting involved as a pass rusher, 4 pressures or 5 pressures and 1 sack and 4 quarterback hurries in that first preseason game. Then he shows his athleticism in a different way on that hustle play against the Texans. I like Chapman, man, and we talk a lot about undrafted free agent rookies. Can they make an impact here? Can they make an impact there? Usually they can't at a lot of those skill positions like quarterback. It's very tough for an undrafted free agent rookie to really take over a starting quarterback job or a wide receiver job. That's tough. But in those trenches where injuries are abundant and where the skill gaps might not be as wide from a veteran 12-year defensive tackle and a young undrafted rookie, you can see an impact be made there. And for what it's worth, Alex, the Giants haven't seemed to be this excited about an undrafted rookie since like Victor Cruz. But like, they've had a few decent guys come in since then who were undrafted players. They've had some that have brought some intrigue and excitement to the fan base, but the Giants themselves seem pretty confident in Elijah Chapman, and that feels a little bit notable to me. So yeah, Chapman is who I'm keeping a close eye on that defensive tackle job. I'm loving what he's bringing to the table, and I'm hoping that Jordan Riley can also get some good snaps in this final preseason game, show what he can do as a run defender and a nose tackle. But I really do like Chapman. He's played a lot of that 3-tech for the Giants this summer. I think that versatility as an undersized but shifty defensive tackle to move across the line and play in that multiple front for Shane Bowen will actually earn him a lot of that playing time. But is there anyone else on the D-line? Obviously, I mentioned Chapman, I mentioned Jordan Riley. Anyone else that you're looking at, Alex?
Man, I mean, I think you kind of hit most of them. I really like Jordan Riley as a nice early down run stopper. I could see him eating into Raheem Nunez-Roche's reps long term. So that's kind of where I foresee that happening. But, aside from the defensive tackle position, the outside linebackers, Azeez Ojulari, he's competing with Boogie Basham for those, third rotational snaps. I think Azeez kind of has that one locked up. But, Boogie Basham has had some decent plays at times, and he is a former Buffalo guy. And we know what the Giants love, to play former Buffalo guys. So you never know there, but I do think for the most part, Azeez is that third rotational option. Keep him in that kind of pass rush specialist role. Keep him healthy. When he gets on the field, he can make an impact, and that's really all you want from him. Don't need him as a starter. Just need him to make an impact when he's on the field. Stay rested, get out there, and when your number's called, get after the passer, and hopefully get some sacks, force some fumbles, do some good stuff there. But for the most part, I think the outside linebacker position is also locked and loaded.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Outside linebacker is definitely an interesting one. I do want to flip over. We've pretty much only talked about the defense here, so I do want to flip over to the offensive side of the ball just to kind of get some little diversity of thought in here and talk about both sides for the Giants. Alex, I want you to keep the mic off for this one. Let's talk about him once again. Number one player that I'm excited to keep an eye on in this game, it's Evan Neal. I hope that he plays. I pray to God that Evan Neal plays in this game. I want to see him ball out in this game and make some difficult questions get asked this weekend. I don't know how you feel, but I don't know. I'm excited to see Evan Neal and the backup offensive lineman. Not just Neal. I want to see Josh Azidu. How does he perform? The Jets not only have a good starting defensive line, they have a good second string and third string defensive line. Like this defensive front that the Jets have, it's freaking stacked. this is a great test for all of the Giants offensive linemen. If the starters do or don't play, the backups, the third stringers, doesn't matter. They're getting good matchups here. I really want to see if Evan Neal suits up. I want to see how he performs, and I'm also keeping a close eye on Josh Azidu as well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Evan Neal is competing to be a backup right now. One good rep yesterday. Let's compound that. Let's make it 10 good reps on Saturday night. So, we'll definitely be watching him, making sure that he, does his part. If he plays, that is. I think he will probably get some action. It won't be a ton, but maybe a couple reps here and there, as he works his way back from that ankle surgery. But at the moment, there's a lot, like, the expectations are zero for Evan Neal, right? I don't know about you, but I expect absolutely nothing from him. The only thing he can do is good. Because if he looks bad, he just stays the same. Doesn't really change my opinion. I just still think he's bad. But if he plays well, maybe there's a little bit of upside there. Maybe Carmen Brasillo can get some actual quality out of him. Maybe there's some hope yet that he can turn into a serviceable NFL player. Now, that I do think I did hear that they were cross training him now at guard, so there could be some kind of flex there in the future, but at the moment, just gotta stay healthy, man. Like, you can't get better if you're not healthy, and that's the most important thing. Get out there, have some good reps, stay humble, improve, stay behind the scenes, in the shadows, and just make your mark. Leave your impression. Positive every day, compound good days. That's all you can hope for. Right now, nobody thinks anything of him. The only way he can go is up. So, hopefully he can start to get some attention and, put together some good reps that we can kind of look back on and say, all right, like, let him keep going. Jermaine Illuminor is my guy. That's the one that I see starting for the next 2 years. Unless Evan Neal gets exponentially better or there's an injury, which in that case he will have to play.
And an injury is very likely on the offensive line, and Jermaine Illuminor is the first guy to get moved because he has the ability to play left guard, and right tackle. So if there's an injury to either of the guard spots, and maybe even if Andrew Thomas gets injured, you do see Jermaine Illuminor flip to the left side. So no matter what, if there's ever an injury on the offensive line, we probably see Evan Neal play right tackle. So that's why I'm excited, because I want to see him play in this game, just because I want him to try and get some momentum to build off of, right? Like a summer where he barely played, play well in this final preseason game, go into the regular season with a little bit more confidence, so that inevitably when the Giants do have an injury up front, again, knock on wood, I hope that we don't, but every team suffers at least one injury on the offensive line at one point or another during the regular season. It's going to happen for the Giants. It's part of the game. When that happens, Jermaine Illuminor is probably going to move across the line, and Evan Neal is going to step into the lineup as long as the Giants feel comfortable enough to put Evan Neal in the starting lineup. So he needs to play well in this game and give the team a little bit of confidence so that they can put him in the starting lineup. So I do think this is one of the most, it's crazy to say because it's a preseason game, I think this is one of the most pivotal games of Evan Neal's career if he does suit up. And I'm really keeping a close eye on him and excited because, honestly, this could be the turning point for him. Either this is the point where we know, like, okay, it's done, it's a wrap. He let up 5 pressures in this preseason game. We're never going forward with him as a starter. If he plays well, it could be confidence builder. And, hey, maybe we do see some Evan Neal this season. Maybe he starts to turn it around. We all know a great coach can make a big difference. Carmen Brasillo has done a great job so far this summer. I would love to see what he does with Evan Neal.
I mean, absolutely. This is like I said, nothing to lose if you're Carmen Brasillo or you're Evan Neal. Like, just sky's the limit. Keep working, keep getting better. And Josh Azidu, same thing there. Like, we have no expectations. You still have Aaron Stinney, who's had some good moments, and Schlotterman, who's had some good moments, and Jacob Kubas, who actually went in at right tackle and looked pretty damn good against the Lions. And then we're still waiting for John Runyon. He suited up for practice today, so he was back. I don't think he's going to play, but give him the time. He'll be ready for week 1. Better than Aaron Stinney. Listen, this is also a guy who's played 3 years of consecutive football with over 1,000 snaps. So we need John Runyon to be healthy. He's a very solid left guard. They have some versatility now. They have some decent depth. It's just compounding good days. The offensive line has to improve and just get better every single week and stay healthy first and foremost. And I've said this a billion times. Fewer mistakes equals less injuries. Just how it goes. So, I do think this team has a lot more upside in the past in terms of the offensive line, the protection. Daniel Jones is going to have a much better pocket than he has in the past. This is his chance to sling the rock and have some good moments downfield. And, against the Jets yesterday, it was a lot of dink and dunk, a lot of shallow crossers. So they're just trying to get his confidence back up after the kind of tough one on Saturday. But, I doubt he plays. I know just dropped that Brian Daboll will be calling plays against the Jets this upcoming weekend. And kind of like cat's out the bag, man. He's going to be calling plays all season. Like you said, Mike Kafka is he's delivering trays, man. He's put the fries in the bag at this point. It's Brian Daboll's job now. This is what we did. This is what they wanted, man. This is what they wanted from what we all wanted from Brian Daboll, to be the guy leading this offense. And finally, he's going to be the one dialing up the explosive plays, doing the damage. Like, it's his offense, rides and dies by him now. It has to be that way. The Giants hired him to be this guy. He's got to be this guy. He's got to let the thing rock. He's got to let Daniel Jones rock and throw the ball downfield, be aggressive. Because, if they don't leave it all on the football field, what else? There's going to be a lot of what ifs after this season. And what ifs are bad for everybody, in my opinion.
I'm with you. One last player that I want to shout out before we wrap this up. Jalen Hyatt. I need to see him have a good game. He didn't play well in the practice against the Jets. He's been a little bit hit or miss throughout these preseason moments and these training camp moments. I want to see Tommy DeVito sling a deep ball to Jalen Hyatt, connect with him on a touchdown in that first quarter. Give me that. I need that in my veins like crack. Like, seriously need to see that happen. So I'm excited to watch DeVito. I'm excited to watch Hyatt. Really just excited for this final preseason game because it means the preseason is over and the regular season is finally here, and I cannot wait. Of course, it's going to be a long and fun season here, recapping all the Giants news, rumors, reports, everything right here on Fireside Giants, powered by BetUS. So make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. But without further ado, we'll catch you all on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.
Perfect.